Hello and welcome to one of our latest conversations on onshore wind. The government here in the UK wants a resurgence in onshore wind, more projects coming forward, and it's particularly looking at opening up England to onshore wind again after some years. Of course, there's been a lot of projects going ahead still in Scotland and some in Wales, but we're now looking forward to a new wave. And so we thought it would be really useful here at Burgess Salmon to have a think about the experience we had when the first projects came through the system and use that experience because we're acutely aware that some developers and a lot of advisors have exited the market since. And to remind everyone what the key issues are in this particular sector, I'm delighted to be joined today by Victoria from our banking and finance team.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah, and we'll kick off.
Yeah, sure.
So I guess the first question I've got is, what are the key things we're asked to do when it comes to financing of these types of projects?
So it's a great question, and it's fabulous to see these wind assets coming back into the debt markets. I think the first thing is not to forget that these are renewable financing. So a lot of the really basic things that we're used to seeing for renewables still hold true. The difference this time around is we're expecting there's going to be an awful lot of competition for capital for these assets. So it's making sure that your project is easy for your funders. So it's all the, as I said, it's the easier stuff. You're having a well-presented data room, all of the rights sitting in the same SPV. It's all of the things that people will unfortunately have remembered from the first time around, really.
Yeah, and I suppose that's an interesting point, isn't it, when you say easy, because I suspect when we've been exploring in the rest of the series that we've got here, some of these projects aren't going to be as easy as the first ones because turbines have changed and so forth. But your point is, from a documentation, a data room perspective, ticking all the legal boxes, that's the ease you're talking about.
You're right. There's going to be some additional complexities from where we've seen previously, and these assets are very different from the assets that we would have seen last time round. But it's doing those easy things right the first time round, which is going to make your project attractive for a funder in this space, and inspiring confidence that the project is well developed and well run.
Well, I suppose as well, as you said, the funders have got used to these types of projects, so it's easier in the sense that these projects have been funded in the past now. There's a track record of funding these, and everyone's seen that they work.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the historic assets, a lot of the assets which we're now starting to see decommissioned or repowered or whatever they are, a lot of lenders have done very well out of those assets. And it is, as I said, it's a very attractive asset class, particularly when you think about the kind of scale of some of the assets now compared to some of the assets that would have been financed previously. So I think there's a huge amount of capital that is willing to deploy in this area, and it's going to be the question of making your projects look attractive for a funding perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, picking up on one of the things you said there, these newer projects, we had that first wave that we were all involved in. We've learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
But these projects will be different, and I guess the finance market has moved on.
Yeah.
So what would you say the difference is this time around?
So there's some key differences, I think, recognising that the assets themselves are slightly different, or very different in some cases. One of the things I think that is not tripping people up, but taking people by surprise, physically these assets are so much bigger, and the land rights, particularly around access, getting these huge assets onto site, we are seeing some challenges with land rights and an increased focus on diligence on this asset. Okay. So, if you need to, you need 30 access leases to get your turbines onto a site. And that's the other thing to remember as well, is some of these location sites aren't the really prime, easy to access sites. So in this second round, we are starting to see assets being located in places that might be quite tricky. So I guess that's the first thing that we're definitely seeing that's quite different this time around, is thinking about the land rights and then the number of access routes that are going to have to be diligenced. And the supply chain as well. I think I was reading 3/5 of these assets are being manufactured in China. So that raises all sorts of additional challenges around shipping and insurance and bonding and protections and thinking about that. And it is also raising ESG concerns at a time when lenders have a lot of quite stringent policies around that. So the supply chain and kind of the interaction with your supply chain, thinking about that as well is definitely different this time around. And then I think the final thing I'd say is, it goes back to the same thing in that we are financing an asset which we have done before and has come to the market before. But these assets are a huge amount more complicated than they were last time round. And so the O&M in particular, and the kind of interface issues between your O&M and your turbine supply, and thinking all of those through, we're seeing some challenges in that area as well.
Yeah, and I think I'd just draw on the lessons of some of the other sessions where we'll have and have had as well. I suppose from these types of projects, you're going to have complications now around the idea that people will bring hybrid projects to the fore with battery storage and other things. The financial model and how you're going to make your money from the project has changed from the old days of the renewables obligation.
Absolutely.
How's the money working?
Those days easy.
Yeah, no, they were, in hindsight, a lot easier, and so that has changed as well. And I think as well, because of the grid constraints that everyone talks about, we're probably going to see more shared grid projects, which in itself brings some more complications as well. So a few things there for the lenders to get comfortable with.
I think you're exactly right, but let's not forget, these are, most of these lenders in this space will already have gotten comfortable with things like batteries.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think we're going to start seeing kind of bolting on of lessons learned across other technologies. But it's a really interesting point you raised there, Ross, particularly when you think about future-proofing these assets. It is thinking about, you may well be developing a wind asset now, but thinking about, am I going to want to bolt in a battery asset or perhaps a supply for a hydrogen project? You're thinking about, and I think that goes back to the structuring piece, thinking about how you're going to structure your assets. If you do need a kind of grid co, if you are going to have a battery co, just giving a bit of thought to that at the front, I think would be really good advice.
Okay, excellent. So the next question I've got, I mean, I think you've probably answered this, but with your enthusiasm, but is there that enthusiasm in the debt market out there for these types of things?
We're certainly seeing that. And we are seeing the resurgence of these assets coming back to this market. We've got a number of projects on at the moment, and as I say, it is a very attractive debt class here, particularly I go back to a lot of these lenders have got comfortable with more complicated revenue structures such as batteries over the last few years, so I think it will be a very welcome return.
Excellent. Okay, well look, let's that's been really useful. Let's finish on I suppose top tips, future proofing, that type of thing. What would be your top tips to future proof a project from the bank perspective?
From the bank perspective, I think it's looking at that cycle at the beginning in terms of you'll probably want to construction financing, thinking about what are you going to do at the end of that, potentially a portfolio financing of fully operational assets. Are you going to want to do something extra with your asset to build in a new revenue stream around bolting in batteries, or indeed approaching the market for something a bit more complex? We are anticipating this time around there'll be more complicated securitization of revenue streams and stacking assets like that. So looking at the structuring kind of almost brings us full circle, doesn't it? Because it's that bit at the beginning in terms of thinking about the asset holistically right at the very beginning of the project.
Yeah, and I'd add in a blatant plug. I think use people who've done it before. Yeah, and have got the experience from the first round. So
remember it from the first.
Yeah, exactly right. But have learnt the workarounds and what's needed.
Yeah.
Look, thank you very much, Victoria. That's
very
great.
welcome, Ross.
If you'd like to find out more about the work we're doing in this area, please contact Victoria or myself via our website. These sessions will be up on our website. They'll also be on our social media channels. Thank you.